Great. It does show us live, so I'm just double checking here on our social pages, and I do want to give it a second since we're outside of our normal routine of when we post this to actually get it started and going. So if you are okay with it, I'll give it a couple more minutes. All right, I'm starting to see people on here. I promise we will get started here in a quick minute. As if you are seeing us and hearing us, great, then I invite you to engage with us on this video so we can see who you are. We'll go ahead and kind of get started with some of the housekeeping because I know our Mayor Pro Tem has a robust number of items that we want to talk about and some things he also has to still get to for today. So I don't have him all of today. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and get us kicked off for our broadcast. Now, we generally host these on Mondays unless we run into technical issues or challenges with schedules and other things of that nature. So I appreciate our Mayor Pro Tem for his flexibility and in being on here with us today. If you have not already done so, you can go ahead and engage with this video so we can see who you are by just reacting to the video. A thumbs up, a heart, any of those, even the angry emoji lets us know that you are watching and you are in tune with us. Of course, if you are watching this in the afternoon, evening, or even on a weekend, we thank you so much for basically catching up on what was discussed and staying informed as a resident, as someone who is interested in our business community or our overall community to that degree. Now, if it is your very first time on our page, then I want to invite you to like our page. Make sure that you also follow it. Following the page enables you to get those notifications when we post content or we go live, and liking as well allows for that kind of algorithm to allow for us to show up amidst all of the updates that you get on your newsfeed. Of course, if you are tuned in with us on our YouTube channel, then thank you for engaging with us on YouTube. That is also an opportunity for you to subscribe to that channel and get updates as we go ahead and post those videos or those educational resources on our YouTube channel. Now, the other ways that you can engage with us on this video, which is always something that's preferred because we like to kind of cater and answer questions along the way, is through the chat section. This is available on Facebook. It's available on YouTube. Type us a comment as our Mayor Pro Tem is giving updates or a question that you might have. And if it's something that he is not speaking to or we have time to get to, we'll get to. If it's something in the midst of what he is sharing, of course, he'll be happy to answer that as well. Now, other items that you can be doing to engage with us on this broadcast is hitting the share button on this video so people in your network can see that we're live and can also join in and get all this information along the way. Now, I do want to go ahead and pull up some quick examples for you. Here's a great example from Parker Brown, who's tuned in with us, giving us a quick good morning message to both myself and the Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for being on here, Parker. We also have Jessica Preston tuned in with us. I see you, Jonathan, and Counselor Emmons, and several others that are just watching us for now and joined in with a comment. Of course, our Mayor, McNally, giving us a quick good morning and a sweet endearment of little sunshines. Thank you for brightening up our comment section. Roxanne, thank you also for tuning in with us along the way. And here's a quick compliment from Counselor Evans, best MPT ever. So look at that, pays off for you to be awesome alongside your peers on the dais, right? With that, I do want to turn this over to Mayor Pro Tem DeMott. Mayor Pro Tem DeMott, I know you have a number of things that you want to touch on. I'm just going to copy and paste those links for folks in the comment section so they can go to that or reflect on it later on. But the floor is yours, and I'll have you kind of get us started and going.
Thanks, Juliet. It has been a busy couple of weeks, and so since we weren't able to do this yesterday, I can kind of cover two meetings and let people know kind of what's been going on for the last 2 weeks. Last week for me was super busy. I was telling my colleagues last night during our updates, I had one night that I didn't have some sort of council thing besides up through Saturday. So it was a super busy week. But last week we did a number of proclamations. One is yesterday started Mental Health Awareness Month, and so that's why I have my semicolon shirt on. For those of you who don't know, that means the semicolon is used a lot of times with mental health and suicide prevention, because it basically means the story doesn't end. So it's a reminder for people to think about you can't get past any kind of situation. So in my house, we were very big advocates of breaking stigmas down around mental health issues, and it was great to have our partners with us last week. I did add one of the links I added for you, Juliet, was my website, which is just daviddemott.com. If you go into community resources, I have a lot of the different partners for mental health listed in there. So easy way for you to be able to find some of those if you're interested, such as like Jefferson Center and some of the other resources that are available if you or somebody who needs those resources. One of the other things we did was a proclamation, because this week is Small Business Month, or Small Business Week, which means I'm sure that's why you're super busy, because I'm sure you're out helping all our small businesses. So we thank them for what they do for our community. And then the other two things that we did as far as like kind of proclamations last month, or last week, was we approved last week the Lao Mang Memorial Partnership, and so I did add a link for that as well. And so that memorial is slated to go in like in kind of over where Christopher Fields is, where our other military memorial is at. And so that is a great opportunity for you to honor the Hmong community if you want to donate to that memorial. And that memorial basically is going to be in remembrance of the Lao Hmong people who fought alongside our folks during the secret war during the Vietnam era, and worked with our CIA and our military to protect them. And so, we are honored to be able to have that in Westminster. We have a very large Lao Hmong population. It's a great community of people who are within our community. So I was very honored to get to be part of that. And then the last proclamation we had was we did a proclamation for former Congressman Perlmutter. I know that he was a friend to the chamber. He did a lot of work, and coincidentally, and this just kind of worked out, he actually was a very big advocate of the memorial for the Lao Hmong people. And so he's a good friend of that community. So he was with us last week, and we were able to honor him in his many, many years of service to our community. So on top of that, last week we went through and approved which option we're going to do for the water plant. And I know that throughout the last probably 18 months, there's been multiple times that's been talked about on your podcast, as well as council spent a lot of time on that. There certainly was a good amount of community participation and people who felt we were on the wrong path. I only mention that because there was a lot of, in my opinion, misinformation put out by one of the council members as far as what we were doing and how it was going to be paid for. So I recommend if you're concerned about where we're at and what our path is, to go listen to that meeting. And I copied that agenda, Juliet, and you can go to the city's YouTube and actually watch the conversation. I think a lot of the concerns were addressed last week. And one of the big ones that I wanted to talk about is the funding. And so what council did probably about a year ago, and everybody was involved in this conversation on council, obviously, was we looked at what our 10-year forecast is. And often, any kind of organization, specifically government, we look at, bonding ability over a 10-year period. And we looked at rates over a 10-year period. And council kind of gave the direction to say, we don't want more than a 4.5% increase year over year over the next 10 years. And in that, again, this was reiterated last week, is that was the cap that we said. That doesn't mean that we would, that we gave that year over year, every year for the next 10 years. Those rates are set every single year by council. Or sometimes they may do it in a 2-year increment where they say, okay, for the next 2 years, it'll be this much this year, and the prior or the following year would be, X amount. So they really talked about that. But the other part of that conversation when we gave that direction to staff was there was a pot of money set aside specifically for a water plant. At the time, we weren't sure what our options even were. What council had directed staff to do was to go back to the drawing board, relook at Water 2025, which was the plan at the time, relook at Semper, relook at some other alternatives, and then come back with a recommendation. What they came back with is something in between another option in Water 2025, which saves the taxpayers or ratepayers about $100 million in this process. And the other thing that I would mention that was really important for people to think about, it builds in some flexibility that we don't have at the current site with the current Semper water plant. We have 2 water plants currently, Northwest and Semper. So it's much more of a discussion than I can cover here, obviously, in a half an hour. But I wanted to share that with folks because there was just a lot of misperception about exactly where we were going. Obviously, people might have a different opinion, but I recommend listening to those conversations because they're pretty enlightening if you miss some of those details. At the end of the day, is it the perfect solution that we all, if I had a magic wand and could get exactly what I want? Probably not, but it is a good workable solution that sets the city up for success as far as providing clean drinking water and working towards making sure that we stay affordable in the city. So wanted to cover that. The other things, trying to think last week, that's pretty much wraps up what, the primary things with last week.
Can I jump in quickly since we're going to transition from last week to possibly yesterday, if that's okay? We just have a couple more other folks that have tuned in, Emilio, Ishmael. We also had a quick typo, so thank you, Councilor Emmons, for fixing my spelling of the Hmong community. Unfortunately, I can't through Facebook edits our chats during the live, so I'll have to do it later on when I can catch that. We also had a quick comment come through from Jonathan Chirjulo. It's his first time seeing our broadcasts, and he just wanted to show his appreciation and thank us for taking the time to interact with, especially your constituents, Mayor Pro Tem. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for tuning in. You can always catch us live here on a weekly basis, of course, with our mayor, councilors, and our Mayor Pro Tem. So we welcome you to continue to join in with us, and I'll turn it back over to you now.
Yeah, no problem. So last night we had study session, and actually, before I get into that, I wanted to go over a couple of the things that I did last week that I gave you links for. One of the other things that I got to do in the last week, so we have multiple different liaison positions where we go and serve with our act as the conduit between council and our boards and commissions. And so I joined the Planning Commission and was able to, just go say hello to them. Planning Commission is one that's a little more difficult to go to because a lot of times they're going to cover content that's going to come back to council. But it's important for us to be in front of them. So I did go say hello to them, worked with our environmental advisory board on Wednesday. They're figuring out what they're going to do moving forward for the rest of the year as far as events and being able to educate folks around the subject area of environment that, is in their stead. And I think it looks like they're going to, probably spend some time on water-wise kind of ideas, energy saving, all the different things that we try to help educate folks on as far as, being good to our environment. So excited about kind of their path forward. They also are looking to try to partner with some of the sustainability clubs out of the schools so that they can figure out what those groups are doing and what the city is doing and see how they can work with each other. I thought that was a really good idea that came out of their meeting last week. And then going in, we also, a handful of us went and did the dinner for Food for Hope, which is a group that works on getting food access to folks that need it. And then I finished my week up with, if you've ever been up to Golden down around 6th and Colfax, there's a memorial for the Marine Corps up there. And so I was able to join the United States Marine Corps Memorial Foundation on Saturday for their dinner. It was pretty cool because there was not only is one of their board members a Westminster resident, but there was a Gold Star spouse who is a resident, and there was a handful of Gold Star parents and spouses that were at that dinner that were honored. There was also a veteran from that was part of Iwo Jima that was up at that dinner. And the dinner, really, the foundation, what they're trying to do is revamp that memorial. They talked about the history of that memorial and how originally, when you would drive up towards the west, it was kind of supposed to be a gateway, and you could see it from far off. As that area is developed, you don't get that same effect of it anymore. And so on top of that, it's kind of dated. So they are looking at revamping that, and that's what they're trying to fundraise for. And their new plan is a really nice memorial. On top of that, they also are going to have a veteran center up there as the plan, so that it would be staffed with veterans who then connect other veterans with resources that they need to be successful as they transition back into normal life. So it's a really good opportunity, I think, to honor our Marines and veterans. And so that's why I wanted to use the opportunity I have with your audience to anybody who's interested in that. Certainly those are folks who either fight for or have laid down their life for our freedom. So I think it's really, really important that we as a nation support those folks. And so this isn't just honoring them, but it's also helping those, that come back to be able to be successful in life. So I think it's a really, really neat concept, and I'm really excited about it. So I wanted to share that with your audience. So with that, then I'll move into the what we did last night. So last night we was study session. We went over 3 different topic areas last night. One being our municipal court. That was probably one that I think over the last handful of years we've talked about. I think I've brought it up on your podcast before, and I know in prior podcasts I've heard about it talked about, because we've tried to figure out how we're going to fund a new courthouse. So last night they brought funding mechanisms to us, and we were talking about doing COPs, and they are just kind of in the early phases of moving forward with how we're going to fund and build our new courthouse. One of my questions was when they're looking to actually be operating in the new courthouse once it's built and done and everything. And it sounds like probably mid-2026 is the goal. Good conversation around that. And, some of our, the way that we look at justice has really changed a lot over the last decade. Like the city as our mental health court, there's a lot of veterans courts and stuff in the region, and just working with those different partners so that we get people kind of out of that cycle of the justice system. So a lot of neat stuff, I think, coming out of that conversation as they move forward to figure out, what the court needs to be long term. I will share with folks, I think that the date was 62 that the court was built. The court is our oldest city facility. It was originally City Hall, and where council used to meet, and then there was the police station there, and so it's been a lot of different things. A library next door to it that's now used by some of our mental health partners. So with community reach, so it's time for that to be revamped or to get a new facility. So I'm excited that we're finally starting to figure out how we're actually going to move that forward. The city has been saving money for that for some time. Obviously, it's a big dollar lift, somewhere between $30 and $40 million ish. I mean, not exactly, but it's a big ticket item. So, I think that they were saying last night we have about $6 million put aside for it. And so there's going to be a combination of different funds used to move that project forward. Then the rodeo market was another topic. And, so for folks who don't know, Rodeo Market was one of the original markets, like grocers in the city on 73rd Avenue. That building was purchased by the city probably about a decade ago. And it's, historic building. So there was talk about what the future of that building is going to be. Prior to COVID, it was slated to become a brew pub, and we had a partner who was going to move forward with that. And then COVID hit, and that deal kind of fell apart. So basically, the direction that was given to staff last night was to go out with basically a RFP and try to see if we can find a different partner to put a restaurant in that facility. So that was a conversation around that. And then we finished the night up with an update on the TOD down at the train center, and pretty neat. We had some different developers who came in just to support the development that's going on down there. And then as well as Colorado Sound, who is they call that home down there. And I don't know if you're familiar. I think the chamber's familiar. Their members, correct? They did
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, you gotta work on them. That's a good one. They had a really neat video that they did to just really talk about the entertainment district portion of the TOD. And some stuff I didn't realize because I'm hyper focused on Westminster. I didn't realize how much was going on across the street in Adams County, just across
Yeah.
Federal. That really just complements what we're doing. So and they're partnering with Colorado Sound. So it's super, super cool stuff that's going on down there, especially if you're a music lover like me. So I was really excited about the potential there. Obviously, there's still the challenges and this was brought up last night around how often we see train, just because RTD hasn't had the money to do what was originally envisioned with the light rail or the commuter rail. So, but still really exciting movement, I think. And now that we're kind of out of pandemic mode, hopefully we'll start seeing a lot more of the events like we were seeing down at the TOD before, to try to really energize that area. I think that the music district portion, and specifically having Colorado Sound down there, is going to be part of a real igniter for that area. So exciting stuff to come. Lots of cool art stuff. Do you remember the Babe walls that they did down there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Coming
Yeah.
back again this next year. So pretty excited about what's going on with that. And we actually got out before 10 o'clock last night. So
Shocking.
it was pretty. Had to call and warn my wife that I was coming home, so she knew it wasn't a stranger coming in before 10 o'clock. So
that is so funny. Well, that's a lot of work that you all have been doing. Just a quick summary, and I know we've got Min and Brian Head and a few others that have joined us on this broadcast. Thank you guys for tuning in with us. We touched on a lot of the resolutions that were passed through Mental Health Awareness Month, of course, for the month of May, and then also Small Business Week and the resolution for Congressman Perlmutter, which I just met his replacement, Congressman Pedersen, just a few minutes ago. And so her and I are excited to kind of work together on some things. And then, of course, some of this excitement in our South Historic Westminster area, we're more plugged in on the one that's taking place on the Adams County side. So that's funny. I'll have to connect with the folks that are in Westminster for that front, but updating us on items that have been important for our residents, like the design, the water treatment design, what that process looked like, the rodeo market. All those have been questions that I know our residents have been asking for quite some time now. And so it's nice to be able to report back some of these updates their way and share those with them. Thank you, Justin, for joining us onto this broadcast. You did miss the appreciation that was shared around service members and those that have served, and all of the work that's being around that. So just kind of quickly updating you on that, since I know that that is also a passion of yours as well. But we've touched on a number of items with our Mayor Pro Tem, and I do want to thank him for being on here, and for all of you that have joined, whether it's now or earlier on. And now is the time, if you did have a comment or question to ask us, or ask the Mayor Pro Tem, you can type that into the chat for us, and we will pull that up on the screen and maybe have him answer it for us. Otherwise, as you guys are thinking through, then I will piggyback off of the resolution for Small Business Week. And you are right, it is a busy week that's ahead. We've got a lot of on-demand webinars that are educational for our businesses that are planned, educational and timely. I think the biggest peeve for myself is seeing like webinars that are out there that aren't relevant. So there are things like leading through turbulent times, things that around compliance and all these laws that have finally come to fruition and what you should be doing as an employer, and even basic things like what makes your website the best that's out there. We've also have some interviews that are planned out with our small businesses all on Friday. So tune in with us on Friday from 10 a.m. to about 11:30. We've got quick snapshots of these businesses and how you can support them shopping local. And then we've got two additional businesses, small businesses, that will be with me on the airwaves on KUHS Denver. So a lot going on around Small Business Week and educating, promoting, and providing those resources that are there. And Justin did hop in and give a quick thank you. He is also curious about more information on the rodeo market as well. And I will kind of leave that out there for you, Mayor Pro Tem. I know when it's generally been a city-owned piece of property, the information may not necessarily be out there like a lot of our property might be. For example, we manage our own property index and we don't have a lot of that data that's city specific. So maybe there's something that's out there once the RFP is pushed out, if you can loop us in and we can share that out to our local network, because it'd be really nice to have some of our own that are submitting in on those expansionary opportunities that are down in South Historic.
Yeah, and I should be able to figure out how you can connect with that. Stephanie Trawler is the one who's in charge of that effort. So, and I know you know Stephanie, so that would be a good connection around that. It's an interesting effort, and I think that some of the confusion going through, like say the first partnership, was the amount of money the city needs to put into the property, and how that looks. I think last night was a good conversation around understanding some of that, because I know in the last deal there was some misperception about those funds that somehow they were something other than just taking care of the facility. That facility has some things that need to be done no matter what goes in it, and we do own that property. And at some point, the city decided to put dollars into that property, A, to buy it, but B, they use historic funds. And so, we've made, as a city, we've made some commitment in my mind to that facility and taking care of it. And it certainly is a historic facility in that part of town and just for our city. So it makes it complicated though with the historic stuff, just because that means that every time they want to change what the building, they have to go back to two different historic entities, one being our own, one being the state, to say, hey, is this are you okay with this? Here's what we're going to do. Here's the plans. So the nice thing that they did share about last night is, since we did have a restaurant that was going to go in there, if we can find a restaurant use, there's some of that work that's already done that we can we're not starting from ground zero basically. So it's good opportunity. I did want to quickly mention, and I know the mayor mentioned this when the last time she was on, but Councilor Seymour, myself, and the mayor did get to meet with Congresswoman Pedersen. She joined us at City Hall, and then she went on a tour of the new downtown with the mayor. So she had a great conversation with her, and she certainly is looking at ways that she can support the community. So that was a nice meeting, and I was glad to get to meet her and her team.
Oh, I'm still with you.
Yeah, you dropped off for a minute.
I heard you, though. I'm glad that she was able to connect with our elected officials on local level and be able to kind of glean, especially what's going on here in our community, and be even more better informed at the federal level for us. Jonathan, and this is funny, Jonathan in real time has been searching for the rodeo market after we shared that, and he kind of had his own ideas on, hey, this might be a nice fit for more of a community-centric business. And I think that's what we're speaking to when we talk about restaurant, we talk about pubs, or even the opportunity for photography, or any of those that might bid on this RFP process when it does go out there. Jonathan, is this something that continues to fit in that culture of South Historic Westminster, which is more centered around that holistic community and in having those roots here in Westminster? So thank you for that quick comment. I don't see questions that have come our way. So we've done either a thorough job with oversharing things, or they're holding off and want to ask us later on, which is totally okay. If you're tuned in later on, give us the hashtag replay so we know that you watched it later. If you have questions or comments you did not get a chance to ask us, you can always type it into the chat later and we'll be able to pull it. And if you have a question that's more personal or specific in nature, either for our speaker or to your own unique situation or case, you can always DM our page and we'll be able to get that right over to our Mayor Pro Tem to answer. And here's a quick question that is a sore subject, right?
The answer is yes, it does.
Yes.
This is probably the biggest disagreement I have with Councilor Emmons and my children.
Oh, that's so
pineapple
funny.
does go on pizza. I worked at a pizzeria for a decade, and I can tell you, plenty of people put it on there.
She does say it's an important life question. And at this point, Councilor Emmons, I'm not pulling your comment up. The correct answer was exactly what our Mayor Pro Tem has shared. And even Justin concurs. Pizza is life, and when you add pineapple to it, it just makes it even more enriching, is all I'm going to leave it at.
With that, since we're about done, and you and I seem to be pretty good at hitting the half hour, I wanted to remind folks on the 16th, which is the third Tuesday of every month, I have a policy and Pilsner at Kokopelli Beer Company at 6:30. We will be there till 8:30, and it's just a good opportunity to come ask any questions. Typically, other council members will join us, as well as community members, and we just sit down and have a beer together. And you can even buy pizza with or without pineapple there. She has great pizza. So I really encourage folks to use that opportunity to come have a two-way conversation. Often when people come and share at the council meetings, as much as I appreciate it, and I hope they continue to do that and use their freedom of speech, we don't have a two-way conversation at those meetings. So this is a good opportunity, as well as later this month we'll have a town hall that is you can start planning for. And since I brought it up, it is on the 18th at Orchard Park Academy. That's at 7395 Zuni Street. So council will be having their first town hall of the year at 6:30 on the 18th. So.
Awesome. With that, we are going to give you all the rest of your morning. Thank you so much to our newcomers, our repeats, and those of you that are tuned in morning, afternoon, evening, weekend, or any other time. We appreciate you. Hit the share button, like, engage with us, and continue to stay tuned and on top of what's going on in our community. There's a lot with our counselors, a lot with our chamber, and it's a perfect time to plug in and engage. Thank you so much to all of you for tuning in, and stay with me, Mayor Pro Tem, as I close out.